Got
Welcome,
it.
everyone, to Anonymous Addiction at My Truth About AA, as Bobby C sees it. I'm your host, Bobby C, and this is Anonymous Addiction on YouTube, as you know, because you're watching it on YouTube.
Yeah.
My guest, I'm considering her a reoccurring guest. I'm going to say hi to Joey C. Joey C, hello. He's another reoccurring guest on Anonymous Addiction. But Robbie, she goes by Robbie. And we've been friends for a while, and she's on Facebook, and she belongs to a bunch of groups that I belong to in the programming podcast, deprogramming, let's say, private groups on Facebook. And Robbie, we're going to do a part one today, and then we're going to do part two. This part one is going to be on step 4 and 5 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're going to show you some similarities to the Catholic Church that are unbelievable. I mean, and then we're going to touch on 6 and 7, which is just about God. You know, it's how God relieves us. You know, we don't do it. God's going to take care of it for us. So I'm gonna just let I'm gonna come in with step 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to just talk about that for 1 second, because I call 1, 2, and 3 the setup step. And it sets us up for what's to come, you know. And step 1 is we're powerless. Our lives are unmanageable. Okay, so we're powerless and our lives are totally unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe. You know, I have to come to believe. Come to believe what? Come to believe in God, in AA, and the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. Step 3, made a decision to turn my will, my life, over to the care of Alcoholics Anonymous, or God, they say, you know. And Robbie can relate to that, because we're going to get into a couple things that she just exposed to me that is really sets this whole thing. I mean, it connects it unbelievable. I'm going to call this, you know, I'm going to call this an act of confession. This is the act of confession with Catholicism, Catholic Church, because I did it. I can later on. I'm gonna say the act of contrition and see if you can relate to it. Okay, Robbie, back to you.
Well, the steps do lead you in a direction, and I'm really glad that I took part in some of it. And there's some things now I'm still struggling with. You know, the whole process of letting go and deprogramming. That's where I'm at. And I'm about some of you've known, you've probably heard some of you have heard my podcast or our podcast before. And I'm about 1.5 years into deprogramming, and I oscillate, you know, in my feelings. It's really overwhelming, because this whole thing with AA and religion, it's so intertwined. And I can really see that I have some invaluable experience with my own sense of religion or God, AA, and the directions that I went in my journey of recovery, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to start. You know what? That's why we have so much in common, because you've been around so long. So I'm so glad to have you on with me, so we can validate each other actually through our life experience in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
I'm reading out of the 12 and 12 newcomers, or people that are going into detox and coming out of detox, going into treatment centers and then being forced into Alcoholics Anonymous, people that are sent to Alcoholics Anonymous through their parents, courts, therapists, doctors, lawyers, whoever. You need to listen to both sides. This program hopefully is going to help one member at a time kind of see the other side of what you're getting into when you don't even realize what you're getting into. You know, a lot of young people haven't been into a religion. A lot of people haven't been into a religion, haven't been indoctrinated to any religion, so they don't realize, they don't have any past, and they don't realize what a religion is. So Alcoholics Anonymous is a religion. There's no question in my mind. Okay, we're gonna start on step 4, and step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, I go through the step. This is like about 9 pages, 10 pages. I mean, it's long and it's in depth. And right here, I'm going to go over to a couple pages back, and it says right here, it says to avoid falling into confusion over the names of these defects, because they're constantly calling them defects of character, okay? Defects of character. Here's what they are, ladies and gentlemen. To avoid falling into the confusion over the names these defects should be called, let's take a universal recognition list of major human failings, and they call it the 7 deadly sins. Sins. This whole thing is about our sins, okay? Of pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. It's all about sins. We'll get back into that, but this is an act of contrition, and I'm going to go. How can you relate to that?
Oh my, the very first step 4 that I did, it was all about the garbage. I had nothing good to talk about. And that was, I've heard the term lately, especially in the last couple of years with COVID, trauma bonding. And when I think about step 4 now, it's exactly what I can picture now with my new set of glasses that I'm wearing. With my whole perception of life has changed so drastically. And that's how I can relate. It is totally, totally intertwined with religion.
Yeah,
see it.
Yeah, see, it's a lifetime. I can go back and I can go through these pages, and I highlighted and circled where they say over and over and over again, it's a lifetime practice for life, okay? Because we're told to give our will and our life over to the care of God and Alcoholics Anonymous for life. This is a life, not a week. There's no exit strategy in this, okay? Hey, I'm gonna share just what the act of it. No one never heard of the act of contrition, people. Well, here it is. I used to recite it. I have to recite it all the time. I was taught at a very early age. They get you from a 0 to 7. When they get you to 0 to 7, that's why you go into the catechism when you're young, and they indoctrinate you. Here's the act of contrition. Let's see, where is it at? Here it is, here. Oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee, and I detest all my sins. See, I detest all my sins. I hate all my sins. I detest them. And over and over and over, they talk about character defects. In step 4, character defects. Over and over and over again, this lifelong practice of talking about our character defects. They talk about, twisted relationships with families, friends, and society, total inability to form any true partnership with any human being. Our egomania digs 2 disastrous pitfalls. Either we insist on dominating the people we know, or we depend upon them far too much. That's just one sentence. They're talking about every imaginable scenario in a human being's psychological makeup, and they're putting it on these pages, and they're actually making me believe that I need to subscribe to every one of them.
Absolutely. It's really interesting, isn't it? I keep going back to the whole idea of religion being laid on with AA. I never seen that before until I decided to deprogram and reprogram. And I can see so clearly now, crystal clear, how everything is based on the carrot. You do this and you'll get the rewards. It was I had an experience in 2019. In 2018, my dad was really sick. So he ended up having a stroke and went into hospital. So I got on an airplane and I flew back to visit my dad and family, and was getting his estate and all his documents in order and making sure everything was okay. And anyway, my parents, my dad was in AA. My dad died sober. My dad was also heavily involved in religion, and in particular, the Seventh-day Adventist religion, which I was, pardon me, which I was involved with for a substantial amount of time in my early recovery. And I remember the minister or pastor, I'm going to call him a pastor because in the Seventh-day Adventist religion, it's very, very similar to Catholicism. It's all about dangling the carrot in front of you, you know, like if you don't do this, then you're going to burn in hell. Or if you don't do this, then you're not going to be a part of the 144,000 of people that are going to be saved at the end, you know, all this nonsense. Anyway, the similarity is so profound, you know. Anyway, getting back to my dad. So the pastor was visiting my dad, and my dad looked up at me when I went to the hospital, went to visit him in the hospital room. And he looked at me, he said, Robbie, he said, I must give all my money to this man. And, you know, my parents were not a wealthy family. I didn't grow up in wealth at all. You know, everything I have, I worked really, really hard for it, just like my dad and my family. But it was the dedication, and, you know, everything comes first before family, before everything. God is first. And, you know, the way that they were trying to manipulate my dad to leave them all their money, all his hard-earned money. And I have a mother who has Alzheimer's that is in a nursing home. You know, did the pastor even have any consideration about how my mother was going to be looked after when my father passes away? Not even once. You know, so I'm comparing that contrition with my experiences, even though I wasn't Catholic. And I wasn't raised in a Christian home per se. I got into Christianity when I got sober, right? Because I had to get in touch with my higher power, the concept that worked for me. And all these rigid rules, you know, living in a box and not stepping outside of the box and not questioning anything. That's where I felt safe and comfortable. I felt safe and comfortable in those rules. So when I was doing my step work, it was almost you know, it's really interesting how it's like, it's so good, it turns to poison after a while. Like you just can't get enough of it. And, you know, the first time I did a step 4, it was all about confession, about you know, I had done all these things. I had issues in childhood issues and all kinds of issues that I brought up. And, you know, I had to take responsibility for my side of the street.
You know what? That's amazing. Like, you were in a religion. You can see the similarities to the religion you were in, to the religion of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then you even kind of describe it as Catholicism, as like Catholic type of religion in Alcoholics Anonymous. Here's the thing. Step 4, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know it, your sponsor is going to bug the shit out of you to do a 4-step. That's when either you leave or something happens. You go back out using, okay, big time, because it's like everything inside of you says, no, I don't want to do this. But then they say you have to do it unless you're going to die. Okay. You're going to drink and die and go back out, and your life is going to be unmanageable. You will lose everything. So you must do it. Okay. So it's almost a must to live. Okay.
100%.
So they want us to write down a list of all our character defects. Now, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. People go into therapy. They could do. I know people that have been doing therapy for 5 years, and they still haven't uncovered shit. Okay, they're still dealing with stuff. Okay, so Alcoholics Anonymous wants you to write down this list. You can do it yourself, right? Write down all this list. Dig it deep, and you're going to do something that it takes somebody else 5 years with a professional, you know. And I know this for a fact. Ladies and gentlemen, be careful what professional you go to, because they could be just like a sponsor. Get good help. Seek really good professional. I call it professional. I don't even like to use the word professional. Seek someone that resonates with you, that you can feel, that you can trust. You know, you almost can discern somebody's bullshit, you know, even from a professional. So don't even be careful of the professionals. seek good ones, all right? Because they want us to go in and do this and be cleansed. And the only way we're going to be cleansed, we're going to see in 6 and 7, that's the only way, okay, is to give it over to God. Okay, so step 4, anything else on step 4?
Well, I've done so many over the years. And I think the last one that I had decided to do with the new sponsor that I had, that I found in the program, it was like, now I have to rehash this over and over and over again, and so as I said, yeah, I've done so many, and I had one sponsor who was one of the most amazing persons I have ever met. Her name was Jean. A lot of people knew her. And she had a pure heart, and she would say to me, Robbie, she'd say, now remember, this is also, and it doesn't say it's an immoral inventory, it's a moral inventory. And so she said, remember that, when you are talking about all these situations and resentments and all the things that happen in your life and all the things, remember there's good things too. It's like going into a garden. All you're doing is you're plucking out the weeds. And that was really soothing for me, and then it depends. It really does depend on who you ask to sponsor you. But for me, I feel like I was blessed with that time that I had with this woman. She believed in me, and it took time for me to believe in myself, but she was always encouraging me to step outside. But that was very rare. That was extremely rare, to have somebody encourage you to go out and see what life is all about and seek outside and build a life for yourself. There was only 2 people in the 39 years that I was involved in AA that really encouraged you to seek outside and find what works for you.
You know what? I can relate to that over and over again. Here's what I found out. Now, let me know, ladies and gentlemen, search this and see if I'm wrong. See, they want you to, like Robbie was saying, over and over and over, rehashing. Now, listen to this. Our minds are like a computer. So the trauma and all the experience that we have in our brain does not get erased that quickly, okay? It just doesn't get erased. Even when we admit it, they tell us to, in step 5, they tell us to admit it to another human being, God, somebody else. Even when we admit it to ourselves, God, or someone else, it's still there, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care what you say, it's still there. Telling somebody does not erase it. What does erase it is positive affirmation, to reframe that mind stream, to look at it and say, no, no more. That was the past. I'm not that who I am, who I was told I was, or I made a mistake. To reframe it. That doesn't mean it's still not going to come up. That doesn't mean that it still doesn't come up. It's not still in the brain. It comes up once in a while, but we have to kind of look at it and reframe it. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're constantly, because you have the 4th, 5th, 8th, and 9th, and then the 10th step says continue to take personal inventory, and when wrong, promptly admit. Just like when I used to go to confession, I used to have to go get my give part of Jesus, bread and wine, and then I go to, before I did that, I couldn't do that unless I went to confession in a confessional box, and I told him my sins. I said my sins. I confessed my sins to another human being, even though he didn't see me, okay, because back then, but now you can go, they go to priests and they go right into their sponsors and they say it. But I had to go there every week if I did any sin. So it's actually the act of contrition, the act of confession is a lifelong bondage. It's a lifelong bondage of constantly looking at at yourself. And this way you never look at anybody else's part in it. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It really, it keeps you locked in bondage for, like, I mean, again, I'm still deprogramming. I have to say, like, even speaking about it, it triggers these, like, I'm not being loyal. I'm not being loyal to the, to the old life, that I'm discussing these issues. If I was to talk to anybody in the program, well, first of all, I wouldn't be talking to anybody about this in the program, questioning it, because I would get ousted very quickly, very, very quickly. But just speaking about it sometimes just makes me feel so like, wow, I feel like I'm telling something on somebody,
Exactly.
it's
Fear.
old programming.
I can relate to that, because there's times, even during these podcasts, there's times I've been doing this for probably about 2 years now. And in certain periods of times, it's like, Bobby, you should go and erase that stuff. You should take that off the site. Are you really hurt? It comes in. It's just like I'm saying about the mind stream. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's just like I'm saying about like the things that we've done in the past. Yeah, they'll come up. So it comes up. So what does Bobby do? He says, no, this is real. I have a purpose. I have a responsibility. I'm doing something good for someone. Okay. They want me to believe through fear, guilt, shame that I'm doing something bad. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know the truth about this, and I know my truth, and I know the truth about this. And what we're doing is helping people. That's what we're doing.
The truth, no matter what, like, I mean, I was from 1981. I was in and out for 10 years to 2020. So this brain has been, involved with this for a very, very long time. And I oscillate between feeling guilty and, I'm leaving my old friends behind. And, this whole life is gone. Again, I've said it in a couple of other podcasts that we talked about. When you have that bonding with the trauma, you're talking about all your issues and the defects, and now you're bonding with people over defects. Everything has a negative has a negative connection. And, that can only work so long. I felt like, I swear to you, like, as I said, before I had my 29-year medallion anniversary, I was sick to my stomach because I couldn't hold it together anymore. It was bursting out of my seams. It was like a dam that now was just starting to crack, and this overflow. I just had to stop denying my truth. And my truth was like, wait a minute. And again, getting into step 4 and 5 and talking about abuse issues with people that are not trained, right, to deal with this. That's really huge,
Exactly.
And here I am, a child, talking to somebody who's got maybe 6 months ahead of me, who has no training whatsoever. And it's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. It's like I had to go to a priest. They want me to go to a sponsor. It's confession. I had to do confession. They want me to confess my sins. Here's more of the act of contrition. Okay. Remember I said, oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee. I detest all my sins because I dread the loss of heaven. Now, when they say loss of heaven, Alcoholics Anonymous it's loss of sobriety. Okay. Replace the word. So loss of heaven, what they mean is loss of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous, and the pains of hell. And what they mean by hell, Catholic Church calls it hell. Alcoholics Anonymous calls it alcoholism, alcoholic, drunkenness. Okay. We're just interchanging words. Here's some more now. The pains of hell. But most of all, because I offend thee, my God, which I'm offended thee, AAA. When I don't do these things, I'm offending AA, because we must live by the, not personalities, but by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. Not by our principles, not by natural law principles, but by Alcoholics Anonymous principles. I offend thee, my God, who are all good and deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve, with the help of thy grace, and you'll hear it in step 6 and 7. It's only by the grace of God that we can expel these sins and these defects, only by the grace of God. You'll see in 6 and 7. Listen to this, though. By thy grace to confess my sins, step 4, do penance, step 8 and 9, penance 8 and 9, and amend my life forever, step 10. ladies and gentlemen, this whole thing is copied from the Catholic. Bill W.'s sponsor was Father Edward Dowling, who was a Jesuit priest.
Mhm.
This whole thing is nothing but Catholic. I can get into Matt Talbot. I've done podcasts about Matt Talbot and the Catholic Church. They're just copying it. They're gonna canonize Matt Talbot. He's Bill W. Okay, it's all copied.
You know, it just reminded me of an experience I had. I guess it must have been about maybe 15, 20 years ago. I had an opportunity to go to a retreat in Northern Ontario. It was about 8 hours north of Toronto. So you're really in the bush. And when I got there, there were several people from all over the world at this retreat. And there was this old man who was, I believe, in his 90s at the time, or mid 90s, who was blind. And he was one of the last remaining Oxford group founders. Or he was involved with the Oxford group. And he gave me a book that would have been like AA gold. You know, it was like the original transcript of something. And he gave me this book, and I thought that I now had arrived. Now I'm hanging out with these people now that are at the top of the pile. So, you know, you think this is supposed to elevate you. Well, yeah, your ego. My ego was like, oh my goodness. And what did I do? I was invited to go to a Rounders Day in Ohio. I had spoken at one of their conventions for the Founders Day Roundup. And I hand delivered this book because, you know, it was probably worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but I had to give it to Intergroup. So I went to the Founders Day and I donated this book to the founder. I thought, you know, it's so false. It's so false. And there's only so long that you can do this, you know. And I know a lot of people, a lot of old timers. There were, you know, lots of people that I knew over the years that suicided out, you know, here they are 30 and 40 years sober and they're suiciding out. I've been to so many funerals, probably like you too, Bobby, you know, and people say, well, they died of natural causes.
Yeah, here you just touched on every time you're talking, because you've been around so long, I can relate to so many things, and I could just come back to the book.
Yeah.
And look, they talk about emotional deformities. Okay, listen to this. If temperamentally we are on the depressive side, we're apt to be swallowed with guilt and self-loathing. They're calling depressive people self-loathing and swamped with guilt. Okay. Depression. Okay. Depression. How many people suffer with depression when they come in Alcoholics Anonymous? Now listen to this here. This is not a moral inventory at all. It's very process by which the depressive has so often been led to the bottle and extinction.
Yeah.
They're talking about depression. Okay. Because they're so inclined to self-righteousness and grandiose, you know, character defects. And they expect a newcomer to come in here and get this stuff and be healed from their trauma through no means whatsoever, but by God. You know, and you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous and you believe, you know why most people in Alcoholics Anonymous are either from a religion anyhow. They're either Catholic or from some Christian religion. They believe in the Bible anyhow. You know, the Bible is the big book. The priests are the sponsors. You know, when I used to go, I did my first fifth step with a priest. You know what he told me to do? Because he was connected with all the 12 steps. He was doing all kinds of talks. Matter of fact, eventually he took his collar off and went and started big groups with codependency and ACOA back in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
He told me, he said, Bobby, make the big book your Bible and your meetings your church. Okay, so, you know, because they're all connected, they all send you to Alcoholics Anonymous because they know they're all sending you back to the church.
Yeah, it's really, you know, talking about it just gives me chills because it's so sacrilege for us to be having this discussion, right? To say that, how dare we question How dare we, question the authority? Is there no, there's no real authority, but is there really an authority? Are you kidding me? It's like, the take off the glass or put on a new pair of glasses,
Yeah, the authority. It's like secular AA and agnostics and free-thinking Alcoholics Anonymous members think they're separating themselves from God. They're still in the pyramid, the hierarchy. Their belief in an authority. They're still belief in an authority. Ladies and gentlemen, secular, agnostic, free thinkers, and Alcoholics Anonymous, you're still in a religion. Okay, you think you're agnostic and atheist? You're in a religion. Okay, I don't care how you cut it. You can cut it anytime.
Saying it feels so wrong on every level, but it's the truth.
Yep.
Because what we're doing here is now, what you're doing is you're what's the word I'm looking for? You're discussing your whole life and the values that you and the boundaries and all the rules and rigidity. That's what we're talking about here. And you keep confined in this space. And how dare you question it? That's what comes up for me when I think about the contrition. How dare we?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Robbie is very courageous because she suffered a lot of trauma in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we could talk about that, but what she's feeling is she's experiencing the past trauma inside her body now by talking about it. And that's very courageous. Okay. It takes a lot of guts. Okay. Men, you need to do it too. It takes a lot of guts. Men, you need to come on the podcast and talk about some of this shit, because I get a lot of women, because I believe they're more honest about their feelings and emotions and stuff, what men are lacking today. Okay. Listen to this, Robbie. Listen to this. Looking at both past and present with sex situations have caused us anxiety, bitterness, frustration, or depression. Appraising each situation fairly, can I see where I have been at fault? That's all they want us to do, is see where we have been at fault. We are the problem. We are the ones. I don't give a shit what was put on to me. It's me, me, me. Nothing of them. They don't want us to look at anything anybody else does in their part. And Robbie can relate to a lot with that. And we don't want to get into that right now, because we can get into that in the 8th and 9th step, because that brings up a lot of shit. You could touch on it a little bit, but I know that brings up a lot of emotional stuff to you.
It brings up a lot of sadness. It brings up, I think the biggest thing for me right now is the betrayal, not necessarily from one individual in the program. It's the betrayal of trust, and you do your step 4 and your 5, and then somebody has something on you, and they use it. I've used it on people. I have to admit that I was exactly what they produced, what the ultimate production of what an AA person was me. I lived and breathed it 24/7. Right?
I know. That's why.
I made that commitment to, like, when I couldn't hold it together anymore, like the stuff was, coming out. I really was in a fetal position for 3 months last year, like I just questioned everything. Everything was shattered in my life. My identity was completely shattered because I was in the middle of that triangle, right in the middle of that triangle, clinging to, I don't even know, trying to, what I was doing there, not listening to myself. And I know I'm not saying everybody that came into AA that has trauma or childhood issues or whatever, but there was a lot of people that do have it. And, when you start doing this digging and you start uncovering all this past, if you don't get professional help, it's really, it can be life altering and be led by the choices that you make unconsciously, like the people that I associated with, relationships that I got involved with. Okay, I got big muscles now, right? It wasn't always like this. Can you imagine in recovery, in relationship with people, that I was getting the shit kicked out of me every other weekend? I was getting the shit kicked out of me by somebody in the program that I allowed. And I remember saying to my closest friend that I'm still friends with now, her and I got in the program, I sponsored her, and then she left about 8 or 9 years ago. She left the program, never really told me why. And I never ever asked her. But I would say to her, he's beating me up because I am so worthless, and he's the only one that has the courage to tell me like it is. And this is all based on shame. It is the whole concept of contrition, in my opinion. It's just been my experience. But I mean, I went down religious paths. I went down really, really bad relationships, and after I had that relationship, that was when I said, no man will ever put his hands on me like that again, ever. And that's how I started working out. That's the whole, I started working out. Nobody will ever touch me again. I've had my eardrum broken. I've had claw marks right down the center of my face. I've been choked. I've had doors ripped off the walls. It's embarrassing and yet liberating to talk about it, because I was just living this whole lie for so long.
Yeah.
For so long.
Yeah. People may say, well, what is Robbie? We're on this podcast and talking about all this emotional, deep stuff. Look, ladies and gentlemen, to us, this stuff has to be done. It doesn't matter. This is on this podcast, by saying this, when Robbie plays this back and somebody else plays this, and don't forget to subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not telling you this because of, I'm some big shot on the podcast, because I got nothing compared to these people. Okay, subscribe, please, because this thing, I'm not going to stop doing this. We're not going to stop. You're going to see me for years. You think I'm done? You think I'm going to just disappear? No way. I'm going to be here for years until I die. Okay, so we're doing this to help somebody, another woman, another man, another young lady, another young boy coming into this. It happens to men and women.
To men and women. Some women can be vicious as well. It's not all the men preying on the women, and it's the other way around too. So, there's no prejudice there. I can guarantee you, no racism there. If you have an ugly character, right? If you have a really ugly character and these things, when your back is against the wall, that's when the true person comes out, and so many of this stuff is just swept under the rug with AA,
Beware, young people coming into, I don't care if you're young or old, beware. They know exactly how to use your vulnerability. They know exactly how to use it, because when you do a 4th and 5th, kids, I hear young girls do a 5th step in the meetings. In the meetings, they tell everybody, and boy, those predators are listening. They got their ears up and they're saying, wow, she's telling me her whole story. Wait till I talk to her. I'm going to help her out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like call to the altar. It's like, in other religions, or more of the like Pentecostal, maybe, I'm not sure what the religions are here. I know there's Episcopal and all kinds of other religions and branches in religion here in the United States. And it's the call to the altar. Let's get up there and let's talk about our sins. And again, getting back to trauma bonding. One of the things that I really like now, now that I'm out, I'm doing things that I never thought I was doing. Like I do knit. But I'm meeting people, I'm doing an art class, or I'm going to join a walking club. I've been doing things for myself that I have interest in, and I want to learn more about it. And it's really fascinating to meet other people that have interest in things that are not trauma-based, you know? And what a concept.
You know what? You're living your life program now. It's not AA's programming. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous programming. You're deprogramming from that, but you're creating your own program, and it's called a life program. You're having fun. You work out. I know you go out on the boat. I know you hike. I know you do all these different things. You're creating your own journey. You're having some fun in life. It's a life journey. We're getting away from this addiction, this recovery addiction trap, this alcohol and drug recovery addiction trap, calling us alcoholics, addicts. We're human beings, okay, that had a habit. Now we don't.
I didn't even know that I was human. I thought I was a robot, and I thought I was, damaged material. And it was just, whether it was conscious or not, it was, repeated and it was just reprogrammed in my head from 1981 to 2020. Long time. I had a lot of work to do on this, but I'm doing it. Scared as I am, I'm telling you, I've been quivering. I've been so scared, to talk about this. And who's going to listen? Is there anybody that feels the way I feel? And I lived it on the outside, man. I had it all going on. I went from rags to riches. I've said this a couple of times as well. I've gone from rags to riches in program. I've had it all and lost it all, been on welfare, gone to food banks. And here I am in Florida, living the dream of a snowbird, coming down here for the winter. It's a real luxury to be able to do that, and, but I'll tell you, there's been so many twists and turns in the program, so many. But living a good life is generally frowned upon.
Yeah, here, I'm going to touch base with something here that this podcast was originally we were thinking about doing 4 or 5. No way. We're going to finish up on 4. We're going to do episode 2, part 2, on the 5th step, because there was too much to talk about, and too much good stuff to talk about on this 4th step. Kids, young kids, be careful. Be careful about devouring, because Robbie was talking about setting boundaries. And what this does, it breaks all back. It doesn't allow you to set one boundary, because let me just read this real quick, okay? A boundary. One of the most reasons for not setting boundaries is a fear of conflict. You don't want to upset or anger people, so you sacrifice your own needs and wants to keep peace. It's tempting to return to passive when others don't like your boundaries. Boundaries tell others how you want to be treated, what's okay and what's not okay. It takes our boundaries away. It takes your identity away. It takes your humanness away. It takes your ability to think outside the box. It takes your critical, logical, free thinking spirit away. It takes your body, mind, and spirit away.
Buyer beware. Buyer. I did not know. I had no concept of what I was giving away. I had no idea, no clue. I just knew something wasn't right. Something was definitely not right. I'm programmed, and it's no longer working for me. It's just like the movie The Matrix. Unplugging. That's exactly how if I had to describe, when I decided to leave and when I made that decision, that's exactly what I felt like. All these lines were coming off me: a program, religion, food, every advertising, how I'm supposed to look, how I'm supposed to behave, and it's all concise in that little triangle, right? It's all right in the center.
Now, when I talk about in my program, I talk about, look, the freedom to deprogram from AA, not only AA, ourselves, society, government,
Yes.
religion,
Yes.
media, Hollywood. We're deprogramming. History has been changed. We're deprogramming a lot of things. This podcast is going to go eventually into all my truth about life, not just AA. But we're uncovering, when we talk about going outside the triangle, they want you to go outside the keep inside the triangle. Just imagine when you go out, you still have to deprogram. You think you're done? You think you're done just because you stopped drinking or drugging. If you're not checking out all other avenues, listen to this. These are my friends. I got a lot of different friends and different types of groups and stuff. They say unplug from the fuckery and the
Yes.
shit show of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, because it's a cult mentality.
Yeah.
And it is the matrix in a sense. That we have to even go outside. This is just the beginning of finding out who I am, my identity, why I was put here, what my purpose is.
Yeah. And what I've discovered is my sense of intuition has heightened big time since I unplugged. And I made a commitment to myself. I'm not using the word God. I'm not using the word universe. I'm really uncomfortable with the whole concept of God. That's where I'm at in this journey. I call it my intuition. And when I wake up in the morning, I remind myself to follow my intuition, just to follow my intuition, my inner voice. And it's funny, yesterday even I followed my intuition and I met a really interesting person because of a set of circumstances that unwind, and now I'm going to be meeting with this lady and a bunch of her friends that are going to be discussing about unplugging. Isn't that something?
That doesn't amaze me because I know that's how it works. I mean,
It really does.
Wherever your attention goes, wherever your attention goes, the energy flows. So our attention is going into deprogramming and expanding our consciousness, awareness. Here, I'm going to read this again about boundaries. If you don't set healthy boundaries, you are likely to constantly be at the mercy of others. You allow others to tell you how to think, how to act, and how to feel. You will feel unfulfilled and lost. At its worst, not setting boundaries allows others to do things to you that are unsetting and very harmful.
Yeah. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, on all levels. And I've experienced them all, just like you. I just, I think to myself when I was in that relationship where I was getting the shit kicked out of me on a regular basis, I look back at myself and I go, wow, I am so, so glad I am not in that headspace of the contrition, of the I'm the problem. I'm so grateful that I'm not there anymore, even though I still go back there. I'm still reprogramming because my innate instinct is there's something wrong with me. It's never the other person, right? It's always me. But now things are started to shift.
Right.
Ladies, damn.
Yeah, right on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be closing. We thought this is step 4. Alcoholics Anonymous programming, step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. What they're talking about is sins, act of contrition. Look it up. I just posted something. Check me out. Check me and Robin out on Facebook. I'm on Anonymous Addiction at My Truth About AA, as Bobby C sees it. And you can go to Instagram, My Truth About AA, Twitter, My Truth About AA. You can catch me on Spotify, Anonymous Addiction. This is what we do. We're trying to help people one member at a time. Young people, listen up. This is a warning. Can be very dangerous. Not very. It's dangerous. Period. What do you want to close by, Robin?
Well, again, I always say it's about staying radical and, trusting yourself and trusting your gut, because your gut has the answers. And
Yes.
that's what yeah.
This is a psychological revolution, ladies and gentlemen. So check us out. Next podcast, we're going to be talking about step 5. And I'll do step 5 is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Let's seek out a sponsor and tell them all, her or him, all the garbage, right? Ladies and gentlemen, take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.